Hello, this is Dr. Don White, and this podcast provides an overview of how to transition data into the Illinois Association of School Administrators Senate Bill 7 Performance Ranking file. I have two Excel files open on my computer. The file on the screen now is the file from last year, which contains data from last year. As you can see on the screen, I have the list of district schools and locations. I have position titles, a list of endorsements, list of content-specific endorsements, and I also have the evaluator's name and IEIN. I am not including any local qualifications. On the third worksheet, I have teacher-specific information. For some teachers, I have their current and other eligible positions, and for others, just their current position, depending on each teacher's credentials. That's the information I need to be able to transition to the second file that I have open on my computer, which is the newest version of the Senate Bill 7 Performance Rankings file. After following the directions at www.iasasurveys.org to request the file, each person receives an email from me, and they can download the file after submitting the confirmation form. The directions for doing that are included in an email that is sent to the user. The first step in the process is to go to the Enter District Info here and begin copying and using paste special or paste values to get the data from last year into the most recent file. So I'm going to highlight the schools and locations and copy that data and go to the new file, Enter District Info here, find the same location. And there are multiple ways to paste special or paste values. You can right-click if you're on a Windows computer, and you will notice that in some cases you'll see values. It may be necessary to go to Paste Special here, and you will see values. Or at the top where there's a down arrow underneath Paste, you can click, and you will see Paste Values. Or last, click Paste Special and click Values under Paste and click OK. Each of those work extremely well, and they're the same thing, just different options. Then I go back to the file again from last year, highlight the position titles. Notice that I have gone further than the last position. That's okay. It will not make a difference at all in the process. Copy the information, go back to the new file, right-click where I would like to paste the values, and click on Values. At any point, I can add the license endorsements that I choose to add to the program, and the same with the content-specific endorsements. I don't have any to add at this point. I don't have any local qualifications to add, but I do want to add the evaluators' names and their IEINs. So I go back to the previous year's file, scroll to that information, highlight it, and make sure that I go down at least to the bottom, if not past. Copy the data, back to the new file, make sure that I'm in the right cell, right-click, paste values. If I didn't say it already, the reason that we're using paste values is because the formulas will be broken if we copy and do the typical paste. So I have all of the information that I need on this first worksheet. Now I can update the pivot tables in the second worksheet. These pivot tables are important. The information in the lists here will be drawn from what we entered in the first worksheet called Enter District Info here. And then these lists will be used in the third worksheet for the drop-down menus for many of the fields. To update these pivot tables, I need to make sure that I've clicked on one of the blue cells. And then at the top, I can click Pivot Table, Analyze. Yours may just say Pivot Table, depending on the version of Excel you're using. And then the drop-down arrow under Refresh and Refresh All. And then that will update all of the pivot tables throughout the entire program. If I make changes of any kind to the first worksheet, let's say I want to add a new school, I need to go back and update the list pivot tables worksheet. Again, it's as simple as pivot table analyze, or again, yours may just say pivot table, the down arrow under refresh, and refresh all. And it will update all of the pivot tables in the program. And now on to the third worksheet. This one's a little bit unique in that each year the program is updated to include another evaluation cycle. And as you move to the right, you'll notice that the version that I'm using for this demonstration will have 11 evaluation cycles. See that we have 11 now. So you would have an evaluation date in number 11 and an evaluation rating, which is the drop down here. Because I've added columns for the 11th cycle now, and next year the 12th cycle, 13th cycle as we move forward in the years, each year we add a new evaluation cycle, it's important that when I highlight the data that I do not copy and paste special past the 10th evaluation cycle. Let me explain. When I go to the file from last year and I go to the third worksheet, enter teacher data here, and I start highlighting data, I hold the shift key down and I'm just using the arrow to go across to get to the last evaluation cycle. And in this case, it's going to be the 10th evaluation cycle. If I go beyond that, notice that the next column is, did the Joint Committee override the group placement of this employee? I do not want to highlight that data at this time. Again, because when I paste this data into the updated file, I will have an 11th evaluation cycle. I'll come back in just a couple minutes and we will highlight and copy and paste special the data for columns BN, BO, BP, BQ, and BR separately. So for now I'm only highlighting over to column BM, and then I'm going down to make sure that I get to the bottom of my data set. Again, it is fine if you go beyond the last row of data. Now that I've highlighted all of the data, copy the data, go back to the new file, and right-click in the appropriate cell, which happens to be cell A2, and paste values. And you'll notice that it's pasted the data or pasted the values all the way for the 10th evaluation cycle and not into the 11th. Now I can copy and paste the data for the last few columns that you see on your screen now. One thing I will highlight, notice that column BP now says, did the Joint Committee override the group placement of this employee, or did an appeal process per Senate Bill 1213 result in an override? One of the updates for the year that I'm displaying on the screen happens to be Senate Bill 1213. And the new law allows for an override through an appeal process. So we're just going to make sure that we copy and paste the data from the previous year for did the Joint Committee override the group placement of this employee. So I'm going to go back to the file from last year, and I'm going to go back to the top, and I'm going to highlight the data over to the evaluator. Do not highlight column BS data because it will be automatically populated as part of the programming. So I'm going to highlight all of the data down to the last row. And again, it's okay if you go further than the last row. Copy the data, go back to the new file, and right-click and paste the data. Paste special values. And notice that I did that and it pasted the data in the appropriate columns, and also the evaluator's IEIN numbers were automatically generated as part of the programming. Now I've moved all of the data I need into the program to do the work for this year. If you've used this in previous years, you know that what you need to do is update the current positions and other eligible positions for each employee, add new teachers. You might need to go to the right and say that some people are no longer employed. Some people ask me, can I just delete that data? You certainly can, but I encourage people to keep the data in case it's needed somewhere down the road. If someone asks you a question about an employee, it's still available. It doesn't hurt anything to be in there because we filter it out as part of the reports, which I'll talk about in a second. So I have all the data in the new file. I would add evaluation cycles if I need to by moving the current evaluation cycles to the right one and then adding to the first or most recent evaluation cycle over to the left here. Let's say this teacher received an evaluation rating for this year. I would copy and paste special the data for this teacher that is currently available. Notice that it's the same for both the current position and other eligible positions, in this case 2 other eligible positions for this employee. So I would copy that. Then I would move it over to the right by 1. I would right click and paste values. And then I would go to the most recent evaluation cycles. I'm hitting the delete key after I highlight it. It's okay to do that. And then I could enter the newest evaluation cycle for this employee. There, I've updated that employee's summative ratings now. Now that I'm done with that, I need to look at the data check and make sure that it's green on this worksheet. If it wasn't, it would show up red. And to know which fields are absolutely required, you could refer back to the Directions and Disclaimers page. There is a list in the 5th step of the directions, or 5C, of exactly what data needs to be entered for the program to work correctly. I encourage you to make sure that you've entered data for each of these fields. That's how you see green here. If I'm missing data, you'll see red, and it will give you the clue on which piece of data you're missing. So my file looks to be all green except for the no longer employed employees, which is just fine. Everyone's been assigned a group, and now I can go to the reports and begin updating them so that I can get those ready for the administrators that need them or the association. On the Merge Data worksheet, this is simply a display of a lot of data that's either entered by you or generated as part of the program. The Group 1 report, this is where we can update this report and all of the reports within the file. To do that, I go to Pivot Table Analyze at the top, the same as a previous process for updating the second worksheet. Click the down arrow, click Refresh All, and it's updated every report throughout the program. However, I need to filter to get to the exact data that I'm hoping to see as part of the Group 1 report. First, if I enter the district name, I will never need to enter the district name again. It will display on all of the reports. And now I can begin filtering to display the appropriate data for each report. Instead of saying all, I'm just going to show current employees. And the final group in this one happens to be Group 1. So I turn all off and turn on Group 1. And now I have a Group 1 report. I do the same for Group 2. Selecting just Group 2. If you do not have any employees in Group 2, Group 2 would not be listed in this list, and I would select the blank box right here where there's nothing listed next to it. That just shows me that I don't have any Group 2 employees. If I enter new data and I refresh the reports, there may be new people added at a later time. I do have Group 2 employees. Same for Group 3. And Group 4. Once you select these filters, you should not have to reselect them. You only have to do it the first time that you update your data. You may have to refresh the reports if you change or enter any new data, but you should not have to reselect just currently employed. Not all of these reports are required. In fact, there are only 2 reports that are required as part of Senate Bill 7. The 2 required reports are at the end, called the Sequence of Honorable Dismissal and the Evaluation Ratings List. The Sequence of Honorable Dismissal needs to be produced and given to the association president. And I've had some people say they would like a different report. Unfortunately, I can't provide that level of service for each district. Therefore, I have created this Sequence of Honorable Dismissal list to only include the information that's required as part of the law, and the same for the Evaluation Ratings list. And we want to only display currently employed teachers. So now I have my file completely updated. I would use it throughout the year to enter new teachers on the 3rd worksheet called Enter Teacher Data here. And you can sort this data. The best way to sort the data, you cannot highlight entire rows or entire columns. You cannot do that and then sort the data because it will break the formulas that are behind the scenes. But I can highlight the range of data. So in this case, I'm going to go down past the last row of data just to make sure that I have all of the data, and then I'm going to go to the right to sort. Now the only data you will not highlight is the very last column, which happens to be the IEIN numbers, because those are automatically calculated as part of the program. The rest of the data I can sort without a problem, so I'm going to highlight the data, and now I'm going to click on Data, Sort, and you'll notice that if you've done it correctly, it will automatically come up and say that you're going to sort by teacher last name, then by teacher first name, then by position type. So it will sort alphabetically by the employee's last name, and then it will display their current position first, and then other eligible positions underneath their current positions. So if I've done it correctly, you should see what you see on the screen. If not, please go back and highlight the data again to make sure that you have this automatically appear. And then I click OK. And now I have sorted the data appropriately. This has been an overview of how to transition data from a previous year using the Senate Bill 7 Performance Rankings file. If you do run into problems or you have questions, please send an email to sb7, the number 7, so sb7 at iasasurveys.org. Again, sb7 at iasasurveys.org. And I will be happy to assist. Thank you.